Welcome back to Nutrition Connection, the show where science meets storytelling. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Hicks-Roof, dietitian, researcher, and lifelong advocate of the role of nutrition, health, and wellness. Each episode, I sit down with dietitians and nutrition experts, leaders whose work touches nearly every aspect of our lives. So whether you're a student, a seasoned professional, or someone simply curious about food, nutrition, and health, this podcast is just for you. The views, thoughts, and comments on this podcast do not reflect those of my employer nor the employers of my guest. So let's go ahead and get connected. Y'all, I'm excited to bring on a fellow Texan of mine. We have Neva Cochran. She is a nutrition communications consultant, retired, and a community nonprofit volunteer and supporter. Welcome to the show, Neva.
Thanks, Kristen. I am so happy to be here, and I'm very honored that you wanted me to be one of your guests.
I was really excited. So we crossed paths. Wow, it's been several years through my RD mentorship program because you are incredible as you've gone through your career, really giving back. And that's what I'm excited for everyone to listen, like how you can not only have a successful career, but then give back in so many different ways. So we're going to dive all into it, let me tell y'all. But let's start from the beginning. What inspired you and made you want to become a nutrition professional?
It's very interesting because I did not have this career path ever in my mind. I was a math major. I loved math. I was excelled at math. Math always made sense. It was fun and I loved it. And one of my math teachers said, you should be a math major. And so having no other alternatives, and I don't know, people didn't think about careers like they do now. Like high school students come out knowing what they want to do. And I just had no clue. You just went to college. I was told the whole time by my parents, you will go to college. So I said, okay, math, that sounds good. That's fun. So I did 2 courses in math, analytic geometry and calculus, and I decided math wasn't fun anymore. Even though I made A's in both of those, I just wasn't enjoying it. So in the second semester of my sophomore year is when I changed. So first semester of my sophomore year, I just kind of was going around majorless. And I had a friend in my sorority who was a nutrition major. So I said, oh, what's that all about? And I looked at the catalog and I said, oh, look at this. You have to take all this chemistry and physiology and nutrition, and it's challenging. But it also has something that everybody in the world needs. So it was very practical. So second semester of my sophomore year, I changed my major to nutrition and took my first elementary nutrition course. And then I had to warp speed it through chemistry by going that summer, the fall, the spring, and the summer before my senior year, because there were 4 chemistry courses. And I got all of that in, and I managed to graduate in 4 years because that was the dictum from my father. 4 years, that's it. Money's gone.
So yeah, I was going to say, it's not that he didn't mind you going more than 4 years, but the money's gone.
Yeah. So I made sure I took 19 hours the first semester of my senior year, but I got it all in and I graduated. And then that's kind of how I fell into it. I think that was your question. It wasn't. I will tell you that I did take home economics for 4 years in high school. And for people that don't know what home economics is, that used to be a course. And you did cooking and nutrition and sewing. And I reupholstered a chair my senior year. And you did like house management, finances. It was just everything to prepare you to be a homemaker, which, some people were still doing back then. And I really, really enjoyed it. That's why I took it for 4 years. And I took math for 4 years too. But I did not see that as a career. And I didn't see that as, something I would do. And so when I went back to see my home economics teacher my junior year in college, and I said, oh, I'm majoring in nutrition. And she said, where are you doing your internship? Internship. I went back to this is my second semester of my junior year. I go back to my major professor and my advisor, and I said, what's this about an internship? And he said, we'll talk about that next year.
No.
Yes, I said, now, if you go into nutrition as your major the freshman year, you take a course called Introduction to the Profession, and they tell you about that internship and how you need to prepare for that all 4 years.
Wow, that's crazy. I loved my home economics class though, and my kids are a Montessori, and they integrate home economics. Like my little one, I was having our third little girl, and she knitted her a little beanie cap for the winter. And I was like, these are awesome skills to be learning. Yes. Like that's where I feel like I learned not only sewing myself, but I really got into kitchen, cooking, understanding like food science without realizing it's food science. So I would love to see home economics fully come back in elementary schools, in middle schools, in high schools to really teach people. And I think more people might choose the career field of nutrition.
Yeah, and I didn't see it as a separate entity. I thought you majored in home ec, and that was not what I wanted to do because I didn't want to do all that other stuff. But one thing I also did was in high school, I had read this book called Careers in Home Economics. And there was only one career that I remember from that entire book to this day, and that was work for a food company, which I think was very interesting when you look at what I did later on in my career, what I really loved doing. But
Yeah,
at that
let's dive in.
there was no Google. So I couldn't figure out how to work for a food company, so I didn't see that as an option.
So let's dive in there. Let's
Yep.
talk about your journey. I mean, you have held so many roles and so many different niche roles, which I always think was really cool. Especially, you are a fabulous communicator. I mean, I feel like that's where you've really gained strength. So, talk about your career journey. So, you became a dietitian, you did your internship. What sort of roles have you had? And then ultimately to get to where you are today, which is retired. However, trust me, people are listening. They think you're retired. You're not. You're super active. I see you all the time. Texas Women's and, so many other things that you do. So give us a little overview.
Okay, so back when I was in school, you could only apply to 2 internships. You were limited to 2 internships. So yeah, and there was no internet. I keep saying that, but you literally had to write to the academy, which was in the ADA, and they would send you like a book or something that had all the programs listed. And then you look through that book, and then you had to write a letter to the program saying, send me information. So I collected a bunch of books just randomly because I could go anywhere. And then I had to narrow it down to 2. So one of them was Presbyterian Hospital of Dallas, and I was accepted there. And so I started that, internship. It was exactly 1 calendar year, literally 52 weeks with 2 weeks of vacation. So I did that. It was a general internship. So we had like equal amount of food service management and clinical, and then we had some community. And it was unusual for its time because we did do some things outside of just the traditional public health for community. We went to a spa, to a very upscale spa where women came to lose weight. And Helen Corbett, who was one of the very first chef dietitians and was founded the Zodiac Room at Neiman Marcus. She was the consultant there, and she would come in once every 2 weeks, the length of time these ladies stayed, and did a cooking demo in the kitchen. And I got to meet her, and she had all these cookbooks, and she signed them. And we did that, and we went to like a food broker, and we went to we did public health and WIC and school nutrition. We went to the SMU, Southern Methodist University, and did college food service. That was part of it. So it was really unique in that we got to do we got to see the limited options outside the hospital. But at that time, 80% of dietitians worked in hospitals, either food service or clinical. And then the other 20% were in like long-term care consulting, education, school nutrition. There were no sports dietitians, no retail supermarket dietitians, very few private practice dietitians, no business wellness, any of that stuff. So you were very much, kind of in that very traditional mold. So that's what I did. My first job was in Denton, Texas, about 30 miles north of Dallas, where there's the University of North Texas and Texas Women's University. I was at a startup private hospital that had only been open a year and a half, and I was the first and only clinical dietitian. I had to build a clinical nutrition department from scratch, which I did. And it was great. I mean, it was great experience because I was thrown in, I had to do it. And I enjoyed it. I gained the respect of the doctors who some of them didn't know what a dietitian did. And I really did a lot of, good things working in the clinical area there. But I could see that was not my forever job. And fortunately, my administrator, I reported directly to the administrator, wanted me out in the community. I realized now he was using me as a marketing tool. He said, go out and speak to community groups, speak to the patient groups, do this, go out, get some students over here. So I'm on the phone with North Texas and TWU, and before you know it, I have TWU students coming and working with me. But I also had those professors saying, you need to come back to graduate school. And so when I decided it wasn't for my forever job, I left and I got an assistantship at TWU. I had a couple of part-time jobs with a nephrologist, seeing patients in his office, and being the dietitian for the newly opened dialysis center in Denton. And so I was able to go to school full time and work a little bit. And I completed my master's, did my thesis, and I came back to Dallas, where I went back to work at the hospital where I did my internship for 1 year. I'm
That's
very good at
crazy.
1 year.
That's crazy.
And
I do think that is I loved how you said, I think he used me as a marketer because I'm like everything that I've known from you in the last several years, you are such a great communicator. And I think many dietitians have this skill and they don't really know how to harness it or like what all the outlets are. So let's keep going.
okay, well, I want to say I was not like I am now. I was not at all. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. I did the first group I talked to was called the Breathe Easy Club at the hospital, and it was for chronic lung disease patients. And I did what back then, instead of my plate or the pyramid, we had what was called the Basic 4 Food Group Guide. And I had a poster and I put it on an easel. And I had a paper like this. Where's my paper? I'm going. The milk group, you need to have 3 servings a day. A serving is 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of yogurt, 1.5 ounces of cheese. I could not do it without reading my notes.
No, I would have
But
never thought that. You are so confident now.
it's just practice, practice, practice. The more you do it, and I have another little saying that I'm going to tell you later, but I look back because one thing I will advise people, from the very first presentation I did, I started keeping a list on an index card. And when that index card got full, I did it on the back. And then when I got a computer, I put it all in. I still have that original list. It's like 60 pages of presentations I've done. And I look back at that and I go, I did that? I went over and talked to a nursing class when I was a dietitian at Westgate Hospital at TWU. I mean, where they found me, how they found me, and I can't believe I did it, but I did because I never said no. But anyway, so once I worked at Presbyterian for a year, and I was more specialized there, because it was a large hospital with a lot of dietitians. So I did the coronary care unit, the step down floor for the heart patients. I did the OB-GYN floor, which was fun. And then I did 2 surgery floors later on. And so I got a lot of great experience, but I decided this is not for me. And so I ended up being invited to come back and teach at Texas Women's University. And we had a coordinated undergraduate program. So I taught the senior medical nutrition therapy courses and supervised them in their clinical sites in the hospital. Community nutrition, elementary nutrition for nursing students. I did that for 3.5 years. And then I decided, this isn't really what I want to do. It's just like I had a lot of false starts. I mean, it was fine, but it just wasn't something I want to do forever. Then I went to what was a local dairy council unit. I discovered my niche. It was at that point, what we did was we taught teachers to teach nutrition in the classroom. We had units for 2nd grade and 5th grade, and teachers could get our materials for free every single year that they were teaching that grade if they went through a little 45 to 1 hour training with us. And that's what I did. Most of my time, I'm out on the road. I had North Dallas suburbs all the way to the Oklahoma border. And I went and taught these teachers. And then we worked with school nutrition to try to do marketing and merchandising to increase. It was to increase students using school lunch, but also that got more milk in because milk was part of the school lunch. We did a lot of media, which dovetailed because I became the first state media rep for Texas right when I first got that job with dairy. So I was doing media for them. I was doing media for dairy. It was just, we talked to community groups. We had presentations on osteoporosis, on balanced eating. And so if any little club or women's group or Rotary Club wanted you to come and talk, you were out there doing it. I loved that job. And so I stayed there for 3.5 years. And then I went out on my own. And I did an array of things. I started out, I taught a weight control class. I ended up with teaching a cardiac rehab outpatient 1 day a week for 13 years. I then became the national media spokesperson. After 5 years as Texas, I became the national spokesperson for the Academy, which I did for 7 years. And through that, I did a lot of interviews with magazines and newspapers across the country, as well as TV and radio. And I got to know the Woman's World, which is a weekly women's magazine sold on the stands at the grocery store as you check out. I was used as a quote, but they liked me so much, they asked me to work for them. I worked as an ongoing freelancer for Women's World magazine for 20 years. Every week. It was a pressure cooker, but I learned so much. I learned so much about writing for the consumer. And in that time, in that 20 years, I worked for two other magazines, just fell into my lap. One was called The Female Patient, which is a magazine in doctors' waiting rooms. And then there was Maximum Fitness, which was a men's muscle magazine. And I had like a 6-page spread in Maximum Fitness of a meal plan and all beautiful pictures, which of course I didn't do. But it was really, really a wonderful experience. And at the same time, part of that time, I'm still being a media spokesperson, so I'm doing all kinds of interviews. So after that, after I finished being the media spokesperson for the Academy, I could then speak for other groups, because once you're doing the Academy, it's a conflict of interest to speak for any other company, organization, or group.
So can we pause for a second?
Yes.
I want you to dive a little bit deeper. Like, tell people what is all entailed in Academy spokespeople, because you see it all the time. They're highlighted. So just give us like, how do you become one? What kind of responsibilities you have? And I think the conflict of interest and not working for other brands is also very important as people want to get into media.
There are around 25 national spokespeople for the Academy, and they are in the major media markets. There is a selection process. They stagger the opening of the market, so there's always a new influx of people. And you have to apply. You do an interview, like a media interview with the staff and some volunteer former spokespeople or current spokespeople. Anyway, I was selected, so it is a competitive process. And then once you do it, you have very professional, very intense media training with professional media trainers. So you are actually put in a situation of doing interviews, and they're tough. They do the worst possible thing that could ever happen to you in an interview. So you really learn how to deal. You learn how to create messages. You learn how to control an interview. You learn how to write pitch letters, and you learn all the things that you need to do to be a spokesperson. And so I love doing that, and I was very successful. I mean, the first year, our quota was 25 interviews, and I did 60. I was so worried that I wouldn't make my quota, but I got a really good idea, and I pitched it, and it went like viral before things were viral.
That's awesome. And that's what I said. You are such a great communicator. And I think that the spokesperson is such a great role for people across industries, right? Like, you have academics as spokespeople, you have clinical dietitians. And so it allows to have a voice beyond just your workplace. So let's keep going a little bit. So you became a spokesperson. You had a very successful career, which I'm not surprised, because like I said, you're a very good communicator. What happened afterwards?
Okay, so after I left the spokesperson program, I could start to work for other companies. And that was just on the cusp of when they were starting to say commodity groups, food companies, nutrition and ingredient organizations or companies. They were like, we need a network of dietitians. And who better? They had this little cottage industry of dietitians that had all this professional training and all this experience. So they started out, it was all the former spokespeople. And we would refer to each other. If they were building a network, and they would say, oh, we need somebody in Atlanta. I go, oh, I know someone in Atlanta. And, so we'd refer back and forth, and we'd end up on these same networks. And I did that for quite some time. And at the same time, I'm working for the magazines, and there were other just things, the freelance things that came and went. So some of these I would have contracts like for 7 years. Sometimes it would be 2 months or 1 month or one opportunity or 6 months. It was just all. So sometimes I would be working for like 7 different organizations at one time, and the magazine. So it was quite intense, but I really, really enjoyed it. And that's at the end, the last 10, 12, 15 years, I really focused in more on the agriculture, because I was working for an agricultural company, and I worked for a lot of commodity groups, because I'd come from dairy, which was a commodity, but I did consulting with the Beef Council. I did Egg Nutrition Center. I was on their advisory board for 20 years. So I did a lot of different commodities, worked for a soy ingredient company, Cherry Marketing Institute, California Raisin Marketing Board for 2 years. I worked with Produce for Better Health, Leafy Greens Marketing Agreement. So I did all foods. I just really enjoyed that. And one of the things that I really became known for is my reputation for standing with science. And I know that is something you wanted to talk about. So is
Yeah,
there
well, we're definitely getting into that. Before we jump into science, because I could talk science all day, talk about what you do now. I think what you do now about giving back and mentorship, especially, I would love for you to dive a little bit deeper to what you opened at Texas Women's. I think that's so incredible and powerful. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that.
well, let's kind of go back. Like in 2003, I was asked to start being a preceptor for nutrition communications for dietetic interns from Texas Women's University. And then a couple of years later, my internship, Texas Health Presbyterian, they came to me. So over the period of time from 2003 to 2021, when I stopped doing interns, I precepted 130 interns for a 1 week nutrition communications rotation. And I loved it. And so it gave me a lot of, some of these are, like one of them took me to lunch a couple of weeks ago, 2010, and she wanted my advice. I mean, there's others that I stay in touch with, that I work with together professionally. And so I don't know. It's just like I can't stop helping people. And so I have all kinds of students and interns and young dietitians that will just ask me, and I'll say, sure, I will have a phone call or I will have a Zoom with anybody that wants my advice. I'm honored that people think that I can help them. And it's wonderful to see what they actually accomplish in their careers. I mean, I can drop names of some of my mentees or what the former mentees, and you go, wow. I mean, like Amy Goodson. And I mean,
Yeah.
you
Oh, I
her,
mean,
and she's like, and you know what I love about Amy is, I mean, I don't take credit for everything she's doing, but she will still mention my name and how I've helped her. And I think that's, it's like, and she is so giving it forward. She will take any intern. She will take any intern. And she will talk to students. She has to do it when she's in the car driving because that's all the time she has. But if I ever ask her to talk to a student or an intern or a young dietitian, she will do it. So she pays it forward. She really does.
well, I think
So
mentoring is so key. I mean, I know that that's when you and I first connected because you were
yes,
in our already mentorship program. And I love how people can give back, whether you're earlier in your career or later in your career. There's always that opportunity. And you're right. Like some of these people who you mentor now have these incredible careers, right? And that is just part of the mentoring process. And it's fun to watch them grow. And no, you can't take credit for it, but like there's a piece of you that's like,
yes.
I had my fingerprints on that, you know?
Well, Amy even spoke we had our Texas State conference last Friday and Saturday, and I went. She did a session there, and right in the middle of it, she goes, Neva once told me," and I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
"Oh yeah." I mean, she just like said it because she knew I was sitting there in the room, and she goes, and she was right.
That's
It's
awesome.
just
So
one
let's
little
talk a little bit
tidbit.
about what you do with Texas Women's now
Oh, okay.
after you've been
Well, okay.
precepting.
My original degree was from the University of Oklahoma, and then my master's from Texas Women's University. I'm engaged with both of them, and actually OU a year and a half ago gave me their Regents Alumni Award, and I have a scholarship there, and I have a scholarship at TWU. So what I did, I was presented with this opportunity last fall. They built the state-of-the-art health sciences center for Texas Women's University. I mean, so advanced, so futuristic, all the wonderful experiences, and they're really looking a lot at interprofessional education, which I think is something that you're very passionate about too. And they toured me this whole building, and wonderful. Well, they built a kitchen in there, and it is a state-of-the-art teaching kitchen. And they offered me the opportunity to, they have naming opportunities for everything in the building.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
you can probably have a toilet named after you if you want, your little toilet stall. They have a lactation room, and someone bought the naming rights for that.
That's
So
cool.
I made a donation to the foundation. The reason it was presented to me a few years ago when the building was still doing it, and they told me it was for care and maintenance of the building, and that did not excite me. So I kind of just filed that folder away. And then when they came back and they told me the same thing, but it was a different person, and I just kind of looked, and she said, "You could direct it to nutrition." I go, "Okay, let me think about it. Let me talk to people about it." And so that's what I ended up doing. And I designated half of the money to go for the kitchen, for the function of the kitchen. And then half of it goes back to the nutrition and food sciences department. And one of the needs that the chairman said was continuing education for faculty because they have very little budget for that. So that's what the other part, it's in an endowment to provide for that. So yes, my name is on a kitchen, but the reason I did it is because I wanted the money to make a difference in what they're doing in nutrition and food sciences at Texas Women's University.
I wanted to highlight that because I think it's so important that we can give back in so many different ways. It could be your time, it could be your energy, it could be your thoughts, but it can also be financial. And you look back at those faculty who have had imprint on you and the success that you can have. And I think it's an opportunity for us to say, man, maybe we should give back to the people who gave to us very early. So I love that. One day I definitely want to have scholarships in my name, and to be able to give back. We already give back quite a bit to one of my main alumni, Texas A&M University.
Yeah,
And there's just like an honor about it, but it's also, I'm very thankful because they open doors that I would have never had
yeah,
opened without those opportunities and those faculty who made,
absolutely.
that happen. Like Karen Bethard, she's my episode number one. I mean, she has made such an imprint on me personally, and she's still a great friend and collaborator of mine.
Yeah.
So it does go a long way. Okay, let's talk about science, right? So, how does science or data impact what you do in your day to day? And I know you're retired, but it's still very
Oh,
important to
it's
you.
still there. One of the things as a nutrition communications consultant, one of the reasons that some of the companies and organizations came to me is because I had a reputation for standing by science. So I said, oatmeal and blueberries never came to me because number one, there's no controversy. Number two, I don't do recipes, I do
Mm.
science. And so I would get things like high fructose corn syrup, GMOs, um, low and no calorie sweeteners. Those are the kinds of people. And it's funny because people think, I've had people like actually accuse me, oh, you just say that because of the money. Let me tell you how I got Calorie Control Council. They called me up one day and they said, you're posting our messages. Would you like to work for us? And I go, okay, I'm doing it for free and they want to pay me to do the same thing. Okay, I'll do that.
Oh yeah.
Because it's science. And I had like, I was my own business and I would post all kinds of stuff about nutrition, whether I work for people or not. And so I am a proponent and I have been a consumer of low and no calorie sweeteners since I was a child and the first one came out. And there, I know the scientific rigor that those sweeteners have to go through before they are approved by the FDA. I know the safety and efficacy. I have a whole PowerPoint. I do presentations on it. So I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because I want people to feel like it's okay, to take the guilt out of it, that it's okay to enjoy sweet foods that you're not getting calories or sugar from.
No, honestly, I love that. And I think sometimes I was just talking to a class at University of Georgia the other day, and I was trying to talk to them like, you if you're ever communicating, stand by science, include science. You can include referencing, right? Because it allows us to bring the credibility of what our profession is all about. We are rooted in evidence-based medicine, and the only way to do that is to actually have the science behind it. So I love controversial topics because I'm like, all right, let's have the debate, no problem. Where's the science? And when someone shows up empty-handed, I'm like, it's not
Yeah.
really a debate. You can't bring your opinions. Now, yes, you can have your clinical expertise, which I think sometimes science to clinical translation, like sometimes there is some nuance there, and I do get that. But also don't come to the table empty handed because we are credentialed practitioners and we are evidence practitioners.
And that is what sets us apart from the pseudo nutritionist or so-called nutrition experts is that we deal with science and evidence and they don't. And people will say, they're the ones, they have all the followers and they get so much, attention. And I go, well, they can lie. We can't.
Right? Oh, 100%. I love that. I'm
And,
going to steal
you
that.
know, that's true. They can say anything.
Yep.
And science sometimes isn't sexy. But if you can make something, exciting by not giving the facts, giving your opinion or what you want people want to hear, or that it's an easy fix, it's going to cure something. That's what people want are easy answers to complex problems. But we can take a page from their book and we can make things fun and interesting and exciting. And I think that's one of the benefits of the culinary movement, which I'm not a part of that, but one of my very closest friends, Cindy Kleckner, is a really known, well respected culinary dietitian, and she's all about flavor and she's all about, she makes it come to life. And we really know that. That's how people really learn to enjoy food is they have to know how to do it in a way that they enjoy it, even if it's healthy.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I can't tell you the amount of times that people will be like, "Oh, what do you want for lunch? You just want a plain salad?" I'm like, "No, just because I'm a dietitian does not mean I eat plain salad, number one. Number two, flavor is still my main driver of what I eat too." And like, and I think that's such an important message. And that's a lot of what I love to do too, is like, how do you bridge science, but then practicality? Because science is great, but it's in a vacuum if it can't be translated to something that someone would actually do. And I think you've started to see science move that direction. I think we have a long way to go. Like, I was just in a research study myself, and I had to take this supplement every single day to help with like GI and performance. Neva, I had to like close my nose. It was so bad. And at the end, I'm like, it was super effective. I had no issue, like GI issues. It was helping performance. Like, it was doing everything it could. But I had to write in the review, I'm like, I could not for the life of me eat that or drink that every single day. Like, I almost threw up half the days. You know what I mean? And so I think that's where science and flavor and practicality need to come together. So let's talk a little bit. You've had an awesome career. It's been fun watching you over the years of how long I have known you. What's been your most favorite or something you're most proud of so far?
Um, one of the things I haven't mentioned that I did, I did a lot of leadership within the academy. I was president of Dallas at districts. I was president of the Texas Academy. I was in the House of Delegates, in the House of Delegates Executive Committee. I was on the foundation board, and I was chair of the foundation. What I did with the foundation, I was very excited. I was on the board when we started the Kids Eat Right program, and that was our first public, education initiative. And I think that, there's a lot of wonderful resources for both our members as well as the public that come through the Kids Eat Right. But also, I am very passionate about this profession. I am passionate about the foundation. And I say it is the only foundation that is solely focused on our profession, registered dietitians, dietetic technicians registered, and promotion of science-based nutrition information and what dietitians do. If we don't support our foundation, who will? People have a knee-jerk reaction to give to the Heart Association if like they have a friend or family member that dies of heart disease, but nobody is thinking about like giving to the academy. So it's us or maybe our family or a few friends, that know, but we have got to support our profession. And not only do we do scholarships for students both at the undergraduate and graduate level, we do grants for members, we support research, we have awards for outstanding practice. So I'm really still working with the foundation on fundraising, and I have been, ever since before I was on the board, after I was on the board. So I think that's maybe one of the things I'm most proud of, because I see that as having a lasting impact on the future of our profession. And I've worked on the capital campaigns. We raised $5 million for the second century, which is still creating fellowships and opportunities. And then we just finished up the $1 million Make It a Million scholarship campaign, which is, again, critically important. So I just, would like to encourage people that are members of the Academy or even not to give to the Academy Foundation, because that is the future of our profession, is doing that.
Well, I think that is an important plug. And it goes back to, what we were talking about with Texas Women's, and even giving back comes in so many different ways. If you are called and you have the financial means, like, definitely give back. But if you don't have the financial means, that doesn't mean that you can't give back. Serve
Yeah,
on the board, provide some comments, volunteer with a leadership organization. Like, there's
yeah,
so many ways
yes,
that you can get involved. And one of the things that drives me up a wall is when people complain about our profession. We don't get paid enough. We don't have, adequate billing and reimbursement. We don't have variety of career paths, whatever it is. And I'm like, you know what? What are you doing about it? Are you sitting at the table? Are you making part of the momentum to go there? Because you need not only the pioneers, which I would consider you one of the pioneers to be able to move the needle, but you also need everyone else to join those pioneers and those leaders if we're going to actually make that change. So I think it is an incredible impact. I have personally received a number of scholarships and awards from the academy and my undergraduate, my graduate, and my PhD level. And, that made it happen. Without those rewards and awards, I don't know if I would be where I am today. So I do believe that there is so much power and you're impacting people that they don't maybe know that you're impacting them, but they
Yeah.
know that that award or that scholarship made an impact on them being able to finish their career and become a dietitian. So
Well,
let's
I have
move
a
in.
couple of,
Yeah.
I just want to say a couple of things to follow up on that. I do have a nutrition communications summer experience grant that's 6 weeks for a new dietetic student, either undergraduate or graduate level, that it's called the Frederick Green Memorial um, Nutrition Education Experience. I don't know. It has a really long name. That's my uncle, who was a farmer rancher in Central Texas his entire career. And so I named it after him. And another thing you said, you may not be able to give. I think anybody can give. They have monthly giving things that you can do with the foundation. If you could just give $10 a month, you can do that. So there is no amount that's too small. I think what's important is to start giving and give regularly. And then as you advance in your career, and you can maybe give a little more. But if everyone would give, it's amazing how much money we would have. Just $10 a month, we would have so much money. We would be able to fund all kinds of scholarships and grants. But I just wanted to add that.
Well, I think you're right. I think you can give at many different levels, and there's obviously a lot of different things you can give to. So find what you're really passionate about, whether it's your alumni or if it's the foundation or whatever it is, and realize that passing it back is part of us being successful as a profession. So let's talk about, again, you've had this awesome career, especially in the communications, which is really your bread and butter. And I love how you tie in agriculture because I'm super passionate about agriculture as well. But what suggestions or tips do you have for someone who's interested in a career like yours? Very diverse, but also a lot really honed in on communication.
Um, Yeah, I get asked that a lot. And I actually have Zooms. All my scholarship recipients or my grant recipients, I try to connect with them. And if they want to, some of them I mentor. And my scholarship recipient at OU, we actually started having Zoom calls like almost 2 years ago. She got it 2 years in a row. And even like now she's a dietitian. I encouraged her. She wasn't even like 2 months in her job, and she told me about cooking classes that she was doing because she works in a facility for children with developmental disabilities, and she resurrected some cooking classes that they used to do. And she told me about it. I go, that is so fascinating. I said, you should write that up and submit it to as a proposal to your state, Oklahoma, your state conference. And I said, look on the website. She goes, oh, it's due at the end of October. And this was last September. I said, well, you're coming to Fincey. I'm coming to Fincey. Do a draft and we'll look it over. And she submitted it and she got accepted. And 2 weeks ago on Friday, she presented, not even a year as a dietitian, she presented at a state conference. So
That's
first of
awesome.
all, you can do things. You just have to know. And she probably didn't know that. And that's why it's good to have a mentor that's looking out for you and helping you. But one of the things that I have said, I have this little saying, I don't know where it came from, when I thought it up, but I've had a lot of people say, if you just had one piece of advice to give me as someone starting out, what would it be? And it's take opportunities, make opportunities, and walk through fear. And in 2016, I was asked to give the commencement speech for the College of Health Sciences at Texas Women's University. And I used that as my theme for my 8-minute presentation, tracing only my media career from my very first job when that wasn't even a thing. But I was doing things which I later looked back and went, oh my gosh, I was doing media back then by writing letters to the local paper, and they were publishing them. Then they started calling me for quotes. But anyway, take opportunities, make opportunities, and walk through fear. So I think that, some of the things that I would recommend is do look for mentors that are doing that. And, like I said, people call me. I know a lot of other people that are doing it, like Amy Goodson, who will talk to anybody that wants to know more about it. Some of the things that you can do just to get started, you can start your own blog. Now we have Substack. You can sign up for a Substack and you can write a blog. You can make a Facebook business page and you can just start posting social media. Get on social media. That's where people are. And we need more dietitians on social media. You may not get paid for it, but what it does, it gives you recognition. And I have a young dietitian that I've mentored in New Jersey that came to me. She was doing stuff when she was a student. Great stuff. I started following her on Instagram. We connected. And so when she was a dietitian, she asked to have a Zoom with me. And she did everything I told her. I said, you need to there's a place where reporters go. It's called Help a Reporter Out. Harrow, he sends emails. Sign up for that. She started responding as a source, and then pretty soon she's writing for money because she started pitching these people. So it's going out of your comfort zone. So it's like not only taking opportunities, but making new opportunities, and then just doing it, because it's all kind of scary, but you have to do it. You can write for free publications. You can write, there's little magazines like parenting magazines, or, different ones that I see at the supermarket on the little stands you take for free. You can pitch to them and write for free. And then you have clips. Nobody knows you didn't get paid for that. I worked for 10 years writing a one-page article for a magazine called Southern Dallas County Business and Living Magazine. It was a free magazine. It was ad paid for, ads generated the income. And I used it as a place that my interns could write an article. I took it on. Now, if my interns didn't write an article, I still had to have an article every year for 10 years, and finally gave it off to somebody else. But then my interns had a byline article with their picture, with me, and did all this, we would decide together. So anyway, write for free magazines, or free, like, local newspapers, or your kids' PTA newsletter, or wherever you have, or a website. And then, once you have some evidence that you can write or that you can speak, then you can start pitching for money. Also, I say join the academy, but join DPGs or member interest groups that fit your need. Network with other dietitians that are doing what you like to do. And, there's dietitians in business and communication. There's nutrition entrepreneurs. There's the culinary professionals group. There are a lot of opportunities out there where you can meet people that are doing that kind of thing. Or no matter what your career path is, get in with the people that are doing what you want to do and learn from them.
I mean, geez, that is like awesome advice. That is gold, y'all. That is gold. You don't even realize that's gold. I remember you made me think of, I used to write for Florida Newsline, and it was like this small little newspaper in Southern Jacksonville, Florida, when I was a faculty member. And I used to do the same thing. I would bring my students in. I'm like, help me write this, one page. And it was free. I mean, I got no benefit, but now all of a sudden, I know one time I was volunteering actually at a community event, and someone's like, hey, are you the one who writes that Florida Newsline article? Because I was reading that. So I think, as credentialed experts, we can go out and be that voice. And no, you're not always going to get paid, but sometimes you have to plant the seeds to then get paid later down the road. And so it's kind of like, you start free, but then you will build that, but don't expect to get paid a lot of money right at the beginning, because that doesn't typically happen. It can, but it's rare. Okay, last question here, Neva.
Okay.
If you had a crystal ball, what do you think is coming next in nutrition?
Oh my gosh. Interprofessional education is one of the things I was thinking about, and we talked about that. I just see such an increase in, that being an emphasis for students as well as professionally, and that's what we've always wanted. So I think that is going to be a focus, that we're going to see more team work together in healthcare. I think the weight loss drugs and bariatric surgery, I mean, I know from the people, the MD and PhD researchers are in it, they're going, this is a game changer. And I heard Antonio Miranda speak at the Texas Academy on GLP-1s last week, and he had a whole list. He goes, this is only the beginning. This is not the end. And he was going through all the things, like we're going to be able to look at genes, and we're going to be able to customize like weight or health interventions based on genetics. So I think there's so much more down the line that's going to make everything in healthcare more precise and customized to the patient, because we're going to be able to have better data about them as individuals. I'm looking at my little list here. Oh, I think we're definitely going to more virtual. That door was open during COVID, and I see that as an opportunity for dietitians. When you look at the big, like the private practice, virtual organizations, more and more dietitians are working for them. It makes more opportunity for people who would never have access to a dietitian, living in rural communities like in Texas, one dietitian in the whole county. So they're not going to come in contact with one, but they now can. So I think I just think that dietetics and dietitians can expand everywhere. Wherever there are people, there is a place for a dietitian. Like I said, all these places that didn't exist, sports, retail, business and industry, health and wellness, all of those things didn't exist when I was starting out my career, and now they're big areas of practice. So I think we're going to see it even more and more, that every place people are, a dietitian can be. And a lot of times it's going to take us taking that opportunity, finding and taking and making and walking through fear to make us get there. And, there are people doing that now, but we all need to do that. We need to be our own best advocate.
I love that, and I completely agree. I am an internal optimist, but I truly believe we are at a pivotal point where you're starting to see more dietitians on healthcare teams, more dietitians in food as medicine initiatives, more
Mm.
dietitians needed for things like complexities with GLP-1 medications, which you're right. I mean, the phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials, if you want to dive deep, it is fascinating how effective they could be. Could you imagine a one shot every 6 months instead of every week? I mean, that's the direction we're going. So, Neva, it was such an awesome conversation. I'm so happy to bring you on and be here to really be that, insightful and that mentor, which I know that you have done for so many people. So if you like the episode, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a review. But most important, check out the next episode, because every episode I bring on a different dietitian and nutrition expert to share their story and give you tips and advice on how to be successful.